It's hard to believe that it's been nearly a decade since Mercedes first introduced the GLC class to America all the way back in 2015. Now, this vehicle was designed to replace the beloved GLK as the compact luxury SUV in their segment here in the US. Now, in that time period, the GLC has grown to become Mercedes' best-selling model, with at one point the company moving well over 70,000 units a year here in the United States. And back in 2023, we saw an all-new second-generation GLC, first starting off, of course, with the squared-off body style in the base GLC 300 configuration. However, this week we are testing out the updated version of the Coupe. As you guys know, the Coupe has a more sportier design, and it was first introduced back in 2020. And what makes this model here special is this is the GLC 43, essentially stage one in the AMG-ified versions. It has a special powertrain underneath the hood, courtesy of the world's first mass-produced turbocharged engine that is electrically assisted, delivering up to 416 horsepower. So the big question I want to answer for those of you who are looking for a new compact luxury SUV, has Mercedes managed to perfect the formula with this updated GLC Coupe? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the unique styling language of the Coupe version of the GLC, let me go ahead and pop the hood, because I started off the introduction talking about this very special engine. And here's the interesting twist about the new GLC 43. Mercedes-Benz actually dumped the old twin turbocharged V6 in courtesy of a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. Now, underneath this hood, you're going to find a transversely mounted 2-liter turbocharged gasoline direct injection 4-cylinder. It's part of the AMG motor known as the M139, and this engine is actually hand assembled. That's the one thing about the old GLC 43 is it almost felt like an AMG Light. Mercedes says they're taking the AMG badge on this model a little bit more seriously, even though this engine did lose 2 cylinders and it lost a turbocharger compared to the V6. Now, it's essentially a high output version of the 2-liter turbo that's in the regular GLC 300, but like I said, it has basically 2 forms of electrification. The turbocharger has an electric motor that essentially spools it up before the exhaust gases actually spool it up to kind of mitigate the lag or remove the lag. And then it also is augmented by a 48-volt mild hybrid system. So the output numbers are 416 horsepower. That's a pretty hefty increase over the 255 in the base 300, and you get up to 369 pound-feet of torque. That's also more power versus the 385 that you got from the old V6, although it has slightly less torque. It all goes out through a 9-speed automatic transmission. It's technically a 9-speed auto with the torque converter removed in place of, it has multiple clutches, so they call it an MCT. And then all GLC 43s come with their 4MATIC Plus all-wheel drive system with the ability to send up to 70% of the power to the rear wheels. This is a rear drive biased all-wheel drive system, and it also is a rear drive architecture. Now, fuel economy, even though this engine lost 2 cylinders, it got more power and it also got a little bit more efficient. It's rated at 18 in the city, 24 on the highway. That's about a 1 mpg improvement over the old V6. You have a 17.9 gallon fuel tank. You're looking at around 350-ish miles of range on a full tank. That is, of course, on premium gas. Now, Mercedes-AMG says this model should sprint to 60 in around 4.7 seconds. We'll try it out when we get it out on the road. And it has a top speed of around 155 miles an hour. Towing capacity is 3,500 pounds, and this car, as it sits, weighs in at just over 4,500 pounds. With all the additional electric componentry, this model has gained about 300 pounds of additional weight compared to the old V6. If you guys want even more power, the 63 version, which has an E-Performance badge, means it's a plug-in hybrid. It ramps the power up to 671 horsepower. I'm hoping I can get that vehicle for a full review or for a full week to test at a later date. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here and talk about the exterior styling. Now, as you can see, when Mercedes first introduced the all-new second-generation GLC, it was instantly recognizable as a Mercedes. It has the usual AMG styling elements here, along with the Coupe having some unique styling elements as well. Now, this particular one that I'm showing you is technically a 2024 model. It's painted in nautical blue metallic. It's a dark blue that almost looks black. These full LED headlights are going to be standard. You can see they have the LED reflectors with LED turn signals, LED low and high beams. I don't like how it's a reflector. It looks a little bit low rent to me. You can see the grille. It's that Panamericana style AMG grille with the vertical chrome slats and the AMG badge. You have a more aggressive rear or front fascia with the metallic accents. There's also a night package that my tester is missing that would also black out a lot of the bright shiny chrome bits. But overall, you can really see how much wider and lower this model is from the previous generation. It's around 75.6 inches wide. It's also a little bit longer than the squared off version at 188.7 inches, around 1.7 inches longer than the squared off version and around 1.7 inches longer than the previous generation. It has a 113.7 inch wheelbase. You can see my test car has the optional Y-spoke multicolor AMG wheels. These wheels look incredible, but they are just a pain in the ass to clean. So I would personally skip these wheels. I think they're an extra 1,500 bucks. You have the AMG cross-drilled vented rotors with the 4-piston calipers clamped down, of course, with their silver painted. You can get them red painted AMG badge. You have a staggered setup tires. You have two 65/45s in the front and even fatter 295s in the rear. My test car thankfully has a Michelin Pilot Sport 4 all-season tire, but you can get a summer tire. The adaptive suspension is going to be standard with adaptive dampers, sport tuned of course, but no adjustable air suspension. I also love the full paint finish for this vehicle. There is kind of like some unpainted plastic down there. Turbo electrified signifies that this has, again, a mild hybrid system and an electrically assisted turbocharger, which is really impressive technology. You can see the mirrors. They are body colored, power folding, cameras around the vehicle with parking sensors. There's lots of chrome along the door handles, along the window trim, and you can see a panoramic glass sunroof. It's going to be standard on this model, which I also really appreciate. It does open up to vent air, although it's not a full panel roof. You can see this is the area where you're going to really notice the styling differences on the Coupe compared to the sedan, or not the sedan, the squared off SUV version. I actually really like what Mercedes-AMG has done with the Coupe model. It looks a lot more aggressive. It looks more like a GLE as opposed to a GLC, so like a mid-size SUV as opposed to a compact. You can see taillights have a skinnier design compared to the previous generation with the AMG badge. You can black it out, of course, with the GLC 43 badge. There's also a slightly more aggressive duckbill spoiler at the back, which I think looks great. And then you can see down here, it's got the quad outlet exhaust system, which, just ignore that. That's like the tow hitch cover that you can basically pull off, but yeah, put that back in. That looks a lot better. So the quad outlet exhaust system, as you can see, is actually a real exhaust system. It's kind of connected to not the actual mufflers behind it, but it does actually allow for a pass-through. And this engine, it actually sounds pretty decent, but it's certainly not going to be as good as the old V6. Let's go ahead and fire it up. You can hear how it sounds real quick. And while that noise is pretty nice from the outside, it also is augmented from the inside, which we'll talk about later on. Now, in terms of the cargo capacity, you can see you push that little Mercedes star logo, it allows you to open up the power liftgate, and Mercedes-AMG did increase the cargo capacity for this new generation GLC Coupe. You're looking at around 19.2 cubic feet of storage space with the second row seats up. You can see it's a nicely finished cargo area with this nice plush carpeting. If you look underneath here, there's also a really deep storage area underneath the cargo floor, which is nice. More additional storage here. I like the metal kick plates there. If you want to fold down the second row seats or the rear seats, you can do so by basically just pushing on these little buttons. You can see it kind of flips down hydraulically, and that expands the cargo to around 52.6 cubic feet. That's a pretty sizable increase from the previous generation, which maxed out at around 38 cubic feet. It is around 5 cubic feet less, of course, than the squared off version, but as you can see, the Coupe model doesn't really sacrifice much, but it does, of course, sacrifice that additional space that you could pile things up to the roof because of the sloping roof design. But this is definitely still much more practical versus an actual CLE class Coupe, which again, the GLC class Coupe is designed to essentially replace that model if you guys are coming from a traditional two-door coupe. Now moving on to the interior of this GLC 43 AMG, let's first talk about the key fob. You can see this is the latest AMG key fob from Mercedes-Benz. It's technically a Mercedes key. Again, it has the AMG badging on here to remind you have something special. I like the way the key fob feels. It's a hefty feeling key. It feels sturdy. It feels high quality. It has the usual buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, and then a panic function. This key is a little bit large, but it definitely reminds you that you have a quality Mercedes product. Now, as you approach the vehicle, you can see it has traditional door handles. If you touch that little area there, that will lock the doors. It'll honk the horn. It'll also power fold the mirrors. Touch the back of the door handle, that will unlock the door for you. I believe if you have access to the Mercedes Me app, you can remotely access this vehicle through your smartphone. As you can see, my test car with the nautical blue exterior has essentially the black leather interior with the contrast red stitching. These are essentially the same, are the standard seats. They adjust, I believe, in like 14 different ways. You can get an AMG Sport bucket seat for an extra charge if you guys would like, which would also throw in a massage feature. These seats are also heated and ventilated, and it also includes a 3-person memory on the driver and on the passenger side. Now, the ventilated seats are an a la carte option for an extra $500, I believe, which I find to be infuriating, but the seats themselves, I don't really love the way they look, but again, if you prefer a dark interior, this is certainly an option. I would much rather get the red or the brown interior or the light beige interior. Mercedes offers so many different options to suit your specific taste. So you can see the door panel has some beautiful materials, real leather with the contrast stitch on the upper portion down here as well. You have aluminum trim. You have these high quality feeling window switches, which has a one-touch up and down. There's the optional Burmester sound system in this car for an extra $950. I also love the ambient lighting in this vehicle. As you can see, it's customizable. Mercedes does a really good job with their ambient lighting and making it feel really special. Power folding mirror controls over here. Your seat controls are also located here on the doors. That's what Mercedes tends to do with both of their front seats. Down here, it is a hard touch plastic. You do have some aluminum accents there for the pedals, which is nice, and then you have that AMG specific sport steering wheel. Now, getting inside, you can see this vehicle has, I believe, around 7-ish inches of ground clearance, so it has a pretty nice easy step in. As I shut the door, the door has a really solid sounding thunk, which adds to that impression of quality. Now, turning the vehicle on, you can see start stop button is where you'd expect it to be. Push the button, you can hear the engine just kind of whirs to life. It doesn't have that traditional starter noise, and that's because this car is a mild hybrid system. It has their EQ boost technology, and then it also has that electrically assisted turbocharger. If you guys want to go to the E-Performance 63, it adds plug-in hybrid technology, which this model, as you can see, lacks. Now you can see the steering wheel, like I said, nice AMG look with the flat bottom design. It has lots of buttons on the steering wheel. It can be a little bit overwhelming. But from the paddles here to control the 9-speed auto, you have your drive mode selector here. You can see there's a Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, and then there's also, if you twist it back to the other way, there's an individual and a winter mode here. You can really hear it affects how the engine sounds. That's, of course, augmented through the speakers as well, in addition to being genuine. I like the burbles and pops, though. It definitely sounds a little bit more like a hot hatch versus like a performance SUV, however. You can see there are some touch-sensitive controls here to adjust the fully digital 12.3-inch instrument cluster, and then you can see over here, this is where you can adjust your 11.9-inch MBUX infotainment display. Audio controls are here, your cruise control information with their adaptive cruises over here. My test car is missing the heads-up display, but you do have real leather covering the upper portion of the dash with the contrast stitch. Love the oval-style air vents, which have a nice satisfying click to them when you want to adjust the airflow. You can also block out the air by just twisting that, which is nice. The metal weave trim, you can see, is part of an extra a la carte option. I love, again, the beautiful aluminum trim with the ambient lighting, which is fantastic. This screen over here is pretty comparable to other Mercedes products. It doesn't have that tilt-up function that I tested on the CLE Cabriolet, but you can see it includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it also has all of your access to your usual apps and whatnot. Comfort mode basically allows you to adjust the ambient lighting, multiple different colors and styles. You can also turn on the seat kinetics, which I also really love that feature on longer trips. It just basically adjusts the seats every few minutes to kind of prevent you from feeling the fatigue. There's also embedded GPS, as you can see over here. I'm not connected to my phone because I'm using that to film right now, but the CarPlay takes up the entire screen, which is also nice. You've got dual zone climate control. You have these touch sensitive buttons here for your audio or for the volume control. There's a mute button there. That's a fingerprint reader. And then you can push that. You can go into basically a quick access mode. AMG will also bring up your AMG drive modes there, and if you push that button, you can see there's a full surround view 360 camera, which basically this vehicle allows you to do a full 360 perimeter scan. The quality and the resolution of the screen is also fantastic. So again, this is something that you kind of expect from a European car. It just looks really great. This is something that I think is going to help you with parallel parking this vehicle as well, which is a really nice touch. Down here, or actually, I'm sorry, go back to the home screen here. One of the unique features about this car is the fact that now AMG takes this a little bit more seriously. So you can see it has your usual AMG performance pages, but you can also pull up the AMG track pace, which now, you know, I don't know if people are going to ever take this to the track, but you can see it actually can load up tracks. You can go to a drag race function, a telemetry function as well. This is something that, again, the previous 43s didn't have. So this is kind of trickling down from the 63, which is nice to see, which is great. That metal weave trim here looks fantastic. You have your wireless phone charging pad over here. You've got two USB-C charging ports, your cup holders here. You can see if I close this up, it's got a nice sturdy lid, and the material quality is also pretty solid, along with the build quality, which I really appreciate. You can see nice padded center console. If I open that up, you can see there's also additional storage in here. It's relatively deep. You have 2 more USB-C charging ports in there, which is nice, although Mercedes technically charges you extra for the USBs. It's like an extra $250, which I find to be incredibly insulting. The steering wheel is not heated as well. For this price point, it should have a heated wheel. My test car actually gives me a credit to credit back the heated seats, or the heated steering wheel, and it's around 34 degrees, so I'm really missing that heated steering wheel. So that's a little bit annoying. You can see the seats themselves. You can adjust the headrest forward and back. They're also power up and down. Again, these seats, I believe, adjust in 14 different ways. You have 3-person memory and heated and cooled seats, of course, on that side. Open up the glove box here, it's huge. It's stamped and it's lined with felt. Lots of additional storage over there. The Burmester sound system for $1,000 is actually not bad. It sounds great. If you guys are an audiophile, you're definitely going to want to check that option for that. And you can see this instrument panel display. You can kind of customize the way it looks. I have it on the classic look, but you can put it into a sport display, which looks really trippy. There's a super sport display, which looks even trippier. And then there's the track pace here apps, which again kind of shows you that this car, Mercedes, wants it to be even more taken seriously as a track car, although I don't think people are ever going to do that. So I love the customization here, but I just prefer it on the classic look. You can again adjust what that looks like there in the center display, which is also really nice. There's an auto dimming rearview mirror here. There's a woven material in the headliner. You have LED map lighting, and then of course there's the panoramic sunroof, which also includes a retractable shade if you want to close the shade there, which is really nice. And you can also open this up to vent air. I'm not going to do that because it's starting to snow, but overall you can see the interior definitely feels special, feels luxurious, looks incredible. Not a single squeak and rattle, so the build quality in this model seems to be a lot better than other Mercedes models, but overall I am pretty impressed. And I also appreciate the fact that they didn't want to go too crazy with the infotainment system. I think this is a good size. It pairs beautifully with a fully digital display, and we don't need, again, that silly hyper screen or super screen. The passenger display, I just find that to be more of a gimmick. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat area and show you guys what that space is like. Now, as you can see with the Coupe model, you're going to have to deal with a slightly lower roofline, but material quality back here is pretty nice. I also want you to notice the windows back here aren't tinted. Not sure why. It's almost like the EPA doesn't classify this as an SUV. Find that to be a little bit annoying, but you can see the ambient lighting carries over back here along with the soft materials. Windows are one touch up down for all 4, so that's really nice. These seats, as you can see, same leather material with the contrast stitch as the front seats. These seats themselves, sadly, they don't have the ability to recline or slide forward, but as you can see, once you get back here, the legroom space is pretty good. Now, I did have to duck my head a little bit because of the sloping roofline, but as I get back here, you can see this is my driving position. Mercedes says there's around 37.2 inches of legroom back here, which is the same as the previous generation and the same as the squared off version, the SUV. You just have a little bit less headroom. You can see there are rear seat air vents back here. Big open area here. This is where you could have like a third climate control zone, and there's also no heated seats back here, which would have been nice. You have 2 USB-C charging ports down there. There's a hump, obviously, for the drive shaft. And if you want to fold this down, you get an armrest. And if you pull that out, you can see there's 2 cup holders along with some phone holders over there. The headroom space, as you can see, at 5'7", I have maybe a half an inch of additional clearance. So definitely less headroom space, but still pretty usable for somebody my height. So overall, if you plan to use this as a family vehicle, this is obviously going to be better than a CLE Coupe, but get the squared off version if you guys are looking for more headroom space. But there's also the GLE if you require even more legroom space versus the smaller GLC. So the Mercedes-Benz GLC is arguably the most important model in the Mercedes lineup because the GLC is a compact SUV. This has consistently been one of the brand's top sellers, and when the fully redesigned model was introduced a couple years ago, it did raise the bar in terms of the technology, in terms of luxury. However, I haven't had a chance to spend a week with the AMG models yet. This model is the GLC 43, so it's in the past, 43 used to mean it was kind of like an AMG light. However, this time Mercedes-AMG says they've taken this badge a little bit more seriously because we have the same handcrafted 2-liter direct injection turbo M139 4-cylinder with a mild hybrid assist and that electric turbocharger. There's also the 63 above this, which is a plug-in hybrid and adds a very powerful electric motor at the back as opposed to the 48-volt mild hybrid system. We don't have any electric-only power, but this vehicle has 416 horsepower. So Mercedes-AMG says it's good for 0 to 60 sprints in around 4.7 seconds. It's around a 4,500-pound vehicle, and now it finally also has launch control. That's something that the old model did not have. So let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. We have the vehicle in sport mode here. I have this stability control and sport handling. We'll race start it. That's funny. Oh, 0 to 60 in 4.16 seconds. I was not expecting that kind of drama from this car. I mean, it literally tugged at my seatbelt. It creates those fake sounds. I mean, it has the fake sounds, but it also sounds like there is some real sounds in there. There's like a mixture of fake and real. But genuinely, that was my first time actually launching the car, and that is hilarious. 4.16 is actually very impressive. I mean, the Germans tend to be pretty conservative with their estimates, but that time, 4.2 basically, is a really good time. I also love how with the drama, just like the other Mercedes-AMG models I've tested with their race start function, it just tightens your seatbelt. It adds to the whole visceral experience. It's cool. I like it. I wasn't expecting it to be this much fun for, you know, not the full fat 63. Let's try it here again. Oh, again, with all-wheel drive and that 9-speed MCT transmission, 4.45 seconds there. That's with it more going slightly uphill, so I'm impressed. That is a pretty good time. So 4.16. I'll try a run up ahead, but I won't try the race start. We'll just try it without it and see what the difference is, because I want to know how much time that the launch control actually shaves off when you want to impress your friends or just get the quickest time. Now, in terms of the handling dynamics, this car has the optional 21-inch wheels. We have the standard adaptive variable suspension from AMG. AMG tuned, of course, sport dampers, and this vehicle is the Coupe model, so it's designed to be even sportier. I have to say, it rides really well for a vehicle that's, you know, this serious in terms of performance. We have the bigger 21-inch wheels, but the handling dynamics are also pretty impressive. I like the way this car feels. It also has the nice pops and crackles from the exhaust, although I think some of it is definitely a fake sound, but I'm okay with a fake sound as long as it sounds good. So I've always said, if you're gonna do a synthesized sound, just make sure it sounds good. That transmission also shifts quick. Remember, AMG essentially takes the 9-speed auto, they rip out the torque converter and replace it with a multiple clutch system. That's why it's called an MCT, for multi-clutch transmission. And it's pretty impressive. I like the way this car feels in the corners. It hides its 4,500 pounds of weight quite nice. And remember, the 63 model is even heavier than this. Now, the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system in this car can send about 70% of the torque to the rear axle, so it's primarily a rear drive biased vehicle, and you certainly get that feeling. It doesn't give you enough power to do the tail-out shenanigans that you might associate with some other AMG models with their 4MATIC Plus system, but it's still nice. It has a really balanced feel for this car, and I think that's going to be, you know, really impressive considering the fact that this is a big SUV that weighs, you know, 2.5 tons. Let's try another run here. This time we won't race start it. Definitely feels noticeably slower. 4.75 seconds there, so it shaves about a half a second off the 0 to 60 time when you guys do the race start. So that's impressive. I would say I would do it probably all the time because it's really easy to engage. That's the one thing about the Mercedes-AMG launch control system. It's much easier to engage versus the BMW system. I did feel the back step out there. That's funny. That is funny. I was not expecting to like this powertrain as much as I did, but just like the C63 SE Performance that I tested a few months ago out in California, the numbers of this vehicle aren't very impressive on paper, although the 63 is. The feel of this car is very impressive. I mean, going around corners, the steering is surprisingly quick, agile, lots of feel as well with what the front tires are doing, so that actually surprised me. But I just love how quick the ratio is. The car changes directions with eagerness and a playfulness that you would associate with a sporty sedan. But at the same time, the ride doesn't really beat you up that much. I was actually shocked considering we have like a fat 295 width tire at the back. But let me switch the drive mode here into comfort. Now you can go into an individual setting if you'd like. And you, for example, my individual setting is I have the suspension in comfort, the drive in sport. So this kind of gives you that softer ride quality that you're looking for, but it also still gives me the sound that I'm also looking for, the powerful sound. But I can also just go to the comfort mode and that just kind of quiets everything down. This is where the GLC 43 reminds you again that this is a Mercedes and it's supposed to be a comfortable car. My test car is missing like a massaging seat option, but it does have that nice seat kinetics. I don't particularly love the way these seats feel. You can, I believe, get an AMG specific sport bucket seats but my test car is missing it. These are the standard seats. They do hold you in place okay, but the padding is just a little bit too rough for me. I want them to be a little bit softer. I found the seats to be a little bit uncomfortable, where I'm kind of squirming around trying to get a comfortable driving position. In terms of the visibility, I can see out of the front, the side, the rear is not good. That view out of the back is atrocious from that sloped rear end. A digital camera rearview mirror would fix that, but Mercedes doesn't offer that feature like so many other German brands, which is annoying. The brake pedal in this car, I will say, is unusually grabby and touchy. Very sensitive. As soon as you touch the brakes, they just kind of clamp down with some force. They feel very confidence-inspiring, but it takes some time to get the feel right and the pedal pressure right to where I wasn't jerking my passengers around or jerking myself around. They're just a little bit too annoying with the brakes, so I found that to be annoying a little bit. But in terms of the fuel efficiency, the whole reason why Mercedes replaced the V6 with this 4-cylinder turbo is to get better gas mileage. It's rated at 18 in the city, 24 on the highway, about 21 combined. With its 17.6 gallon fuel tank, you're looking at around 350-ish miles of range on a full tank. I got roughly that in my week's worth of testing. I also averaged around 19 mpg in mixture of city and highway. On the highway, however, I did get it up to around 25 mpg, so that's pretty darn good. I never got a GLC 43 to test with the old V6 for a full week to kind of compare it, but the fuel efficiency of this powertrain is good. I imagine the plug-in hybrid model for the 63 is going to be even thirstier, even though you could drive it in electric power alone if you decided to keep the battery charged and your commute was less than 5 miles, you could certainly do that. But this is definitely certainly a sweet spot for this powertrain. What I don't like about this 4-cylinder is when you're driving it around town, it has a really rough idle. You can feel vibration coming through the steering wheel, through the pedals, through the seats. That is not a pleasant and refined sound for a car that costs like $80,000 that has a Mercedes badge on it. I just don't like how this 4-cylinder sounds like crap basically at idle. It sounds good through the synthesized noises when you put it into like its sport and sport plus mode and such, but when you're just driving it around normally, the engine I think is a little too unrefined. So I'm hoping Mercedes will eventually fix that, add more sound deadening materials. It almost feels like it needs like a balance shaft to kind of smooth out the vibrations. But other than that, the performance of this powertrain is eye-watering. It's impressive. I mean, just over 4 seconds 0 to 60, decent fuel efficiency, good handling, decent ride quality, very good tech. I liked this car a lot more than I thought I was going to. So I think that AMG has definitely done a good job at making this car feel more like an AMG. I just wonder, is it worth it to spend the extra 20 grand to go up to the 63 model, which also makes it a plug-in hybrid? Now, after spending a full week with the new GLC 43, I have to admit, when I first saw this vehicle pull into my driveway, I was a little skeptical because I never really cared for these coupe SUV body styles. However, over the years, they have definitely started to grow on me, especially when you see so many of the normal-looking squared-off roof lines of the GLC, the regular GLC. So after spending a full week with this new version, I think Mercedes has really nailed the exterior styling. This is one of my favorite-looking coupe-ified compact SUVs. In fact, it's going to be one of the few ones available because BMW says for now they are discontinuing the X4. You can still buy it for 2025, but they are not introducing a new generation X4 for 2026. The X2 essentially replaces that. The other competitor is going to be the Audi Q5 Sportback, which of course we just saw a new version of the Q5. Haven't seen the coupe-ified version of that yet, and I also haven't seen the Q5 in person. But what really shocked me is this AMG 43 version with that new 2-liter turbocharged engine with that electrically assisted turbo. I have a love-hate relationship with that engine because while the performance did impress me, 0 to 60 in around 4.16 seconds is very impressive, around a half a second faster versus what Mercedes-AMG claims. The way the engine delivers the power can be a little bit concerning at times because in Sport Plus mode, it feels awesome. It sounds good with the augmented sounds. The transmission also shifts really fast. I love the race start function. I love the all-wheel drive system. But when you're driving it around town, I noticed that it was a little bit too jerky. The brakes are really grabby. The transmission can stumble a little bit and can honestly feel like a dual clutch at times. And the engine has a little bit of a coarse idle sound. There's a little bit too much vibration coming through in the pedals and in the steering wheel. So I find that to be a little bit annoying. Again, if you guys are able to overlook that and just kind of drive it mostly in Sport and Sport Plus, it's going to put a smile on your face every time. And Mercedes has also nailed the ride and handling balance. Even though we've got these massive 21-inch wheels, this thing has a really good ride quality. It has really good steering, and it feels a lot more like a taller sports sedan, which is something that I really appreciate with this car. Fuel economy is also pretty good. For a 4-cylinder turbo, I was getting in the 19 mpg with around 25 on the highway, which is also pretty impressive. On premium gas, of course, the seats aren't the most comfortable for me, but try them out for yourself if you like them. The infotainment system tech is also one of the best that you're going to find. Mercedes has really been improving that over the years with their MBUX. The back seat is also usable. Cargo space is much larger. Again, this is essentially just a different SUV versus the regular GLC 300 that you see your neighbor drives, and it also looks a lot more like a GLE, so really loving the design. Now, the downside, of course, with this more attractive looking SUV is Mercedes has made this car more expensive. Base price for the GLC 300 Coupe starts at around 59 grand. That's around $8,000 more expensive versus a comparable GLC 300 4MATIC in the squared off body style. So you're going to pay a premium if you guys want the sexier rear end design. If you guys want to step it up to the 43, that's going to cost you at least $72,900. So it's a pretty hefty jump. It's around 6 grand more versus the squared off body style of the conventional GLC 43 SUV. Now, of course, my test car has some options, although it's honestly pretty light on options for an AMG product. Basically, the wheels are $1,100. It has the Pinnacle trim package. It has a couple of a la carte options. With Destination, we're looking at an as-tested price of $78,000, just over 78 grand, which I know is pretty expensive. And also keep in mind, if you guys want an even faster version, the 63 SE Performance, that'll cost you at least $92,000. So it's almost a 20 grand increase, but it does give you 671 horsepower. So some of you may view that as a worthy upcharge. Again, this is going to be more expensive than a BMW X4 and an Audi SQ5 Sportback by about $10,000. But again, if you guys can afford a vehicle like this, you want something different, you want that, bragging right of the most horsepower and the quickest acceleration, you're going to be wanting to put one of these vehicles at the very top of your list. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2024 Mercedes-AMG GLC 43 Coupe. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.